the uniqueness of what has happened here. So just to paint the picture, I mean, we saw Bitcoin basically hit an all-time high in the Bitcoin halving year, which was kind of a precedent. It's very clear, it seems, that institutions are really controlling this thing now, and many people are celebrating that like Bitcoin. So more power to you, I guess. I don't know why those institutions haven't done anything with Ethereum, with an Ethereum ETF launching and things like that, but I guess that's another story. But yeah, Bitcoin has just been pushed up by, I mean, I guess you would say everything other than retail, unless you want to call retail the people that are participating in the ETFs. I don't really know, but we can all agree that this crypto cycle, we have not seen a blow off top in the assets other than Bitcoin that we have seen in other cycles. There's not been that kind of euphoria. I'm not a big fan of the fear and greed index as like any kind of, hugely accurate indicator, but I mean, it did not get anywhere near to the heights that it has in past cycles. We didn't see all the typical sentiment things like, crypto Super Bowl commercials and this and that. I mean, it's just not to that level. It's been Bitcoin only.
Mm.
Retail does not care about Bitcoin. I think that's abundantly clear. I mean, people are not really rushing to the gates to buy Bitcoin or really care about it at all. Matter of fact, people are rushing to the gates quite literally to buy gold. That's what we've kind of seen. So we are basically in an environment where, and I'm probably describing the average crypto investor here, but over the last 4 years, you bought the top in 2021. If you really cared about this, believe in these things, have conviction, you've DCA'd hardcore over the last 4 years. And the whole time during that journey, you've had this light at the end of the tunnel that you think, well, the end of 2025, hey, I mean, that's when we'll be cooking. No, you won't be. You're actually going to be completely underwater still, nowhere near it. All of the mainstream Bitco crypto influencers will look like they killed it because, Bitcoin's been the only thing that's run. And unless you picked a couple of like meme coins on Solana at a very certain time that nobody could have picked out, you lost. So that's where we're at right now at the end of November in 2025. So there's a lot of places we can go. Bitcoin right now is rallying for the moment anyway. It's back up to a little over 91K. It's gotten down to 88 earlier today. 91.3 is where it's at right now. We have ETH at 3K. It's gotten down to that 2800 zone, which has been a level of support that it's kind of bounced off of. But yeah, I mean, there's a million ways to go here. We have a lot of ways we can talk about this, but just what do you make of where we're at right now? Ewok, again, many people, I think it's very easy to say now, the majority definitely believe we've entered a bear market. I mean, I think 100% that is true. The majority do believe that. We've seen the fear and greed index. I think I saw a statistic earlier. I know CoinMarketCap said this about their own metric, but I think fear and greed has mirrored the FTX collapse time zone and COVID time zone. Basically, it has mirrored, which is insane to me. It's crazy that we're saying that. And another crazy statistic: this Q4 of 2025 is worse than Q4 of 2022, which was the bear market. Definitively, that was FTX collapsing literally, and Q4 of 2019, which was also a bear market. So really unbelievable stuff. But yeah, what do you make of where we're at right now and where we're going to go?
Well, so the first thing, let's talk about I don't know if anybody saw it or not, but Richard the other day did post a chart of the last several pullbacks before the markets really took off. And he said, this happens every time. And it does. And I was looking into it and I was checking out the CME gaps. And I don't know if you guys know what the CME is. It's the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. And what happens is on a Friday when those markets close over the weekend, Bitcoin stays open and it runs. The price can run away from it and people miss those and they call them the CME gaps. Well, I just checked. We'll pull this up here and it says, because I asked where are the gaps right now, and it said the most significant gap is between 92,000 and 92,000, 97,000. So that means those gaps at some point have to get filled. Almost 99.9% of the time, these things will pull back and they will fill those gaps. So that being said, it's going to chop around in this area until those gaps get filled. That exchange it's always happened that way. And then, once that is satisfied, then it can continue higher. And I think, not to mention the big investors that have been suppressing the price for whatever reason. This was inevitably to happen because it very, very, very rarely will go on past it and never fill those gaps. So, you don't think about the little things like that when the run up happens, but obviously when it ran through, it totally missed it. And like I said, the gaps they were never filled. So here we are again. I had this trend line drawn. I mentioned that to you earlier. This trend line has been from way back when and never moved it. And sure enough, it really just dipped right down onto this trend line and stopped.
Mm-hmm.
Funny, it again, I haven't touched this line, since it's been on there for quite a while. So I found that quite interesting. Unintentionally was there, but the most important thing is that CME gap. So, I really do think we do chop around in here for several days anyway before anything happens. I don't know that it'll go much lower. Again, it had some nice support here on this trend. The trend has been there, since way back here, since we had another point to draw it to and extend from. So, yeah, I don't think it's a bad thing. Again, when these trend lines get hit, crazy things have happened in the past. So, from here it pulled away. This was back in 17, the run up then. Here it almost bounced off of it, and then we had our run in 21. Now we are bouncing back to it again, and we shall see. We shall see what happens. But again, those CME gaps are critically important as far as the markets go. It almost always bounces back. It fills those gaps before it takes off. So something to think about.
Let me be a devil's advocate to that, because there are people that acknowledge the CME gaps but don't pay it as much mind as that. And the big marker that many people have been pointing to try to confirm, or at least I don't want to say confirm, but like use it as a major data point, is that Bitcoin just closed below the 50-day simple moving average. So that is usually the marker of the beginning of a bear market. And that number was like 96.4K or something. I mean, you could tell Sunday morning it was on a mission to absolutely fucking tank. I mean, it was definitely going to close below it, and it did so quite easily. So now that's 1 week. It has to do it again. And, right now, if it could get back up over 100K by Sunday, which sounds like lunacy right now, but we see how these things do move sometimes. Yep. Maybe there's a little bit of redemption there. So I'm curious how you balance those two things, like the 50-day simple moving average. And then after that, how much does it matter what Bitcoin is doing? Because it seems that Ethereum and the rest of this market has basically been in a bear market the entire time. Ethereum did not make, I mean, I don't care how long it did it for. It did not make a new all-time high. Like, that is not any sustainability that you can claim Ethereum made a new all-time high this cycle. It's very disingenuous to say that if you do. I mean, it was literally a matter of hours for one day. Yeah. So how much does it matter what Bitcoin does from here necessarily? Because these things haven't really moved with it how they used to. We've been in a bear market the entire time. And so far, the others BTC chart, so basically it's like everything excluding the stable coins and all of the altcoins outside the top 10, have actually been holding up extremely well against Bitcoin for Bitcoin tanking to this level. I mean, alts should be down 50, 60, 70% from where they were at when this started. Most of them haven't really moved down all that much. So Yeah. First off, how do you marry the loss of the 50-day moving average, and then also how much does what Bitcoin do matter for the rest of this market right now? I don't know.
Well, I think I don't put a whole lot of weight into the 50-day. You want to tick up more to the weekly on that before you start getting too concerned. Um, the weekly average will run up once that starts to come down toward the 50-week moving average. Now that is a bigger time frame, obviously. And they always talk about the cross as well, the golden cross, which it has also done.
Yeah.
Right here, it's crossed over from the 50 and the 200, which usually signifies more bearishness. But again, I do believe it was because of the sell-off, because of the CME gaps. Again, I'm still bullish. I don't think this is anywhere near over. Quantitative tightening is done December, what was it, 6th or 8th or something like that? Maybe the 4th. Was it December 1st? Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of money being injected. There's just too many positive things on the horizon. And I do agree with what you said a little bit earlier, that maybe the money markets have been so mirrored to the Bitcoin 4-year halvening cycle kind of thing. And then it goes into what we've also talked about was this president has not had a whole lot of help financially when things have, they've tried to do things and been met with a lot of resistance. So it's just, we always say, well, it's the same until it's not, and apparently it's not. There's no arguing that this one is completely different than what we've seen before. Although there are some striking similarities. Again, this thing pulling back before it really winds up. It's met this trend line now. It's closing the CME gaps. If perchance we continue to go even lower, then I may get a little worried. But again, you're right. ETH hasn't done anything. Those couple hours that it did catch a new all-time high, which it did, and it's recorded, so you can't say that it didn't. But it was so brief that it didn't even count. It's hard to say with any certainty that it had any kind of staying power, strength at that level, anything. So yeah, it's just a very, very different cycle. And the money at play is definitely not been in our favor. Interest rates have not been in our favor. There's just the money printers have not turned on for quite some time. So that usually signifies the start of bullish things. When money is easier to obtain and get loans for, people start to go in a little bit heavier in risk on assets because they can borrow against it, and make out better than what the rate is charging. So, I still have faith. I'm still bullish. I don't really put a whole lot into this. When we see a weekly close like that, where the weekly starts to be threatened by it, which actually the 50 is on the weekly. It's right there. So
I think when I was saying daily earlier, I meant weekly, as this comment from John Wallace here, which I'm going to get to in a second, but go ahead.
Yeah. So the weekly is the one that I'm more concerned about, and it's still holding right there. I mean, it is very, very close to it. So, once we see a cross in that, then I'm sold that on the weekly, that's where, there's a big problem here when it took off. Now it is a delayed because it is a weekly thing. It is delayed by a couple weeks usually, but if this turns down and this comes up, something else to be said for it. But I still don't I don't fear that yet.